Hello.
Oh, sorry for this.
Hi.
I'm so sorry for the delay. I'm so sorry for the delay. This is a very old buildings. So sometimes the internet connection is not the best. So I'm so sorry for the delay. And thank you very much for the invitation and for your message that I received. Thank you, Nicole. And cheers.
Cheers. Well, also, I apologize for School of Ports followers who are waiting for a couple of minutes. You know, these things, live sessions, they always find a way, the internet always finds a way of getting us into trouble. But as I was saying, so today's session of the School of Port Instagram Live is about Port and Garrafeira Nacional, which is the oldest wine shop in the country. We'll be talking with Nelson, who's already with us. Nelson is a certified sommelier who has worked for many years in restaurants as a head sommelier, and he was also a teacher at Escola de Hotelaria and Turismo, which is one of the most prestigious schools of hospitality in the country. Right now, he's working at Garrafeira Nacional as a sommelier, but also as a brand ambassador for many prestigious brands, such as Antinori, the Italian brand. And he was also a judge at the Decanter World Wine Awards from 2017 to 2019. So now, welcome, Nelson, and thank you for having accepted this invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start with what we really came here to talk about. We came to talk about Port and Garrafeira Nacional. As I said, it's the oldest wine shop in the country. That's the title of our session here. So the first question has to do with the history of Garrafeira Nacional, which is absolutely remarkable. Would you like us to tell, well, shortly, a bit of the history of Garrafeira Nacional?
Yes, of course. The Garrafeira Nacional started in 1927. Was part of the grandfather of our CEO, Mr. Jaime Vaz. And after that, with his father, they started working here. With 7 years old, after school, he came here and helped his father and his grandfather with some guests, with the people who arrived to the store. At the beginning, it was not just wine, it was also a grocery. But then the things start to come up and they start to building an incredible history about wines and ports and old goods and beverage. And so until today, we are keen on the specified products for our guests, mainly with that.
Yeah, Garrafeira Nacional is probably not only the most famous, but also the most important wine shop in the country. And one of the things that we hear the most about Garrafeira Nacional is a common and quite fun expression that translated to English would be something like, if you can't find it at Garrafeira Nacional, you can't find it at all. That's because it doesn't exist. Do you want to comment on that?
Probably, yes, probably there are some things that is true. During the years, our CEO and our team, we try to buy and try to have some special wines, some special ports, something sometimes unique. Not just the wines that is traditional and they are released every year. I can tell ports, some wines from Madeira, and even some rare ones. Some Muscat, some very specific products. So it's a kind of true. If you don't find, if Garrafeira don't have, probably you will not find it. Yes, that's true. That's true.
Because you have a part at the store which is called the museum, right? Which is where you keep the rarities, the old wines, especially old port and old Madeiras, like you were saying, correct?
Yes. We have, for example, just to have an idea, we have bottles from port and from the very old. I think we have something like 1864. I think we have a few wines from the 80s, 80s, 60, 65, from the 19s also. We have very old Madeiras also. We have Madeiras from 1715, 1795. So 200 years of history inside of a bottle. So we have a good collection of very specific ports. We have Muscats, for example, from 1907, for example. We have very, very rare bottles to provide for our guests. So we have also the more traditional ones, the more available in the market, but also some very rare products in our stores, and of course in our stock. That's a product of
that's impressive.
A work of a life. Yes, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's an impressive collection.
Oh yes, it is. It is, and it is nice because you can always satisfy some people with something new. Besides, we are talking a 150 to 200 years old beverage, and most of people are impressed. Wow, it's so old, and it's not just a wine; it's a part of history. So, someone 200 years ago have the ability and have the things to make something quite special. And I think, in my opinion, this is very impressive. To be part, to can promote or to can advise to our guests something such special as that.
That's great. So now, talking specifically about port, I wanted to ask you, how is port a part of the Garrafeira Nacional's business? Do you think it has a lot of importance for the business of the company? Is it something that people look for? Do you have lots of people, lots of customers that go there wanting to buy port, or is it more something that you suggest? Do you have any special initiatives to kind of increase the sales of port in the Garrafeira? How does it work?
Well, in fact, of course, one of our strongest businesses, of course, port is a big part. I cannot tell you exactly, but probably I have around 1,500 bottles of different brands from port. So easily I have that, probably a little bit more brands in our stocks. So it's something that we can recommend. We have different years, different vintage, different styles, and yes, the people ask for port. More in now those days, in the last 10 years, probably the sales increase, and also the demand for that kind of products increase a lot because the people get a little bit more knowledge, and also because the promotion of the wine are well made, and the people has a little bit more aware what is the potential of a port, not just to drink now, but can drink 30 years later or as a gift. So we work very hard that specific beverage, and also we train our teams. Our teams, we have 3 stores right now. We are open a 4th one in Porto soon. So the idea we create and not just to get the best delivered to our guests and to get the best of the products. We train very well our staff. So it's very important for us that we have our teams well knowledge with connections, and we do several times tastings just for the teams inside. So it's a masterclass for us, for all the team, not just the people who are in the front of the store, but also the people who are in back office, and they work every day with our guests by email, by phone. Sometimes the people call, which is the difference in the 1937 and 1931. So the people are able to speak about the product. They know quite well the product. And then, of course, sometimes we do tastings with our guests in our stores, where I am right now in Na Loja de Conceição. It's downtown. It's one of our stores, and we do quite often tastings for our guests. So we believe that port is a big and a very important part of our business. So we decided to work quite well and to promote the best as we can.
That's really earlier you were saying that you have you're very careful when teaching and educating your staff about port wine, and that's really important. At School of Port, we have this initiative, which is an online training called The Essentials, exactly because we kind of reached the conclusion, and one of the most important obstacles into selling more port is exactly that the people that work in the business, the wine professionals, don't have much confidence talking about port because it's a very complicated category. So linking that to my next question, I wanted to ask you, if you find that port is, if you find this, when you're talking to customers, when you're talking to clients that go to the shop or online, do you think port is a complicated category? Do you think that people don't buy port as much or try port as much because there are so many different styles and it starts to be a bit confusing?
Yes and no. Honestly, I don't think so. Because when you talk port, we are not talking about a regular beverage. We are talking about people, we are talking about history and heritage. And behind the glass of port is always a big story. And if you go search on the story about how the port is made, yes, it will be complicated to describe everything for one guest in, for example, 10 minutes. Will be very complicated, and the people sometimes could be confused. But if you say talk about the landscape, the world heritage of the area, if you talk how the port is made, and if you can divide in mainly two styles, if it's possible, I think it's easy to understand. If you like more nutty flavors, if you like more fruity flavors, so you can divide it and you can guide our guests depending the taste that they have. So I think could be complicated if you don't choose your words wisely. So if you keep it simple, it will be very simple also for our guests. I think that's what we try to do, because most of the people doesn't know when we use some terms like reduction, oxidation, and bitterness. So it sometimes could be quite complicated for our guests. So we try to make the simplest possible and make them questions, and then naturally will guide us, and then we can make the best suggestion. I think that's our opinion, and that's the thing that we until today has worked properly, of course. And if there is a guest with very knowledgeable and they ask for more technical questions, we are prepared to answer them all easily.
So it's very interesting what you were saying about adapting, right? Adapting our language to the customers. That's really important, because the objective for School of Port is exactly to talk about port without having to be too technical or too snobbish about it in a way, because there's a lot of miscommunication sometimes because of that. So it's important that we can adapt to clients and customers and whoever wants to try port, because exactly. The truth is, even when people say that they don't like port, it's probably because they haven't tasted port yet. Because once they try a quality port, I mean, I can't recall one single person that tried good port and it didn't like it. So it's really a matter of putting your preconceived ideas aside and just be open-minded and try wine, right? Which is a pretty cool thing to do.
Yes, I think that's the best, because when you buy port, of course you want to offer port to someone, or you buy for yourself to drink, is to have pleasure. And the idea is not, it's complicated. So you want to enjoy the good moments. You have a dessert, and you're going to have a vintage with chocolate, or you can have some nutty. As I say, I think when you want to drink a port, you want to enjoy a beverage, and sometimes you can get lots of surprise. Of course, if you ask me what is your favorite, it's difficult to choose one. I'm a big fan of white ports. I was impressed many years ago with a tasting from Ramos Pinto, a white port from 18th. 1864 was something that was impressive. I have also some old colheitas. That's my favorite. But I like a very good vintage, young, old. So that depends on of course, my mood. And of course, the occasion, what I'm eating or not. Sometimes, for example, right now, to share with you, this is a 10 years old townie from Fonseca's. Cheers. And
Cheers.
that depends on the moment. That's depends on the moment. So I think, first of all, we have to enjoy. And then, of course, we can, it's like at the beginning, you start with the white wines, and then the red wines, you like something a little more fresh, then you go to a little more different style, more acidity, more dry. So in the port is the same. So you start, for example, in the Ruby, in Reserve, then you go to the Townie, 10, 20, 40 plus, something like that. Then you go to Vintage. So you have to try several until you choose what will be best for your palate. So I think that will be the goal. And I think after, as you say, after you try a good port, it's difficult to go back. It's wine
Right.
that stay in memory forever.
That's true. I wanted to ask you regarding the collection that you've got there at Garrafeira Nacional. If you have in mind, what's the oldest port that you've got at the museum part right now? Do you know?
Right now, I think that will be 18. I know it's a Ferreira. I think 1864. I think
1864. So that's impressive.
Yeah, 1864. For sure.
That's that's absolutely impressive. So if anyone's interested, please go ahead.
You can see on the back, but I have several good bottles here from the 20s, from 1910, 1920. So we have a few choices here.
That's great. No, that your collection is just.
I know it's Ferreira for sure, and 1864 is the oldest I have in stock right now. Impressive.
That's great. So, if anyone's interested, you can go directly to Lisbon to visit Garrafeira Nacional, and maybe acquire some of these amazing wines, or you can wait for the shop that will open in Porto, I heard.
Or you can buy online. We have our online shop.
Or you can buy online.
You can find all
exactly
products online, so it's quite easy if you are not near our store. So you can buy directly online, and it will be fast delivery.
Well, I wanted to remind everyone who's listening to us that you can ask questions or make comments using the bar that you have there below. And moving on to my last question, Nelson, I wanted to ask, particularly now with the COVID-19 situation, how has this crisis affected the business and Garrafeira Nacional's business? And I know you guys were closed for a couple of weeks. You have reopened. So how's the new situation, the new normality, as they say, working for Garrafeira Nacional?
Well, technically, we just closed our stores. Our online and our distribution work, we never close completely. So only thing we do, we close our stores. Online was working normal. Well, normal.
Probably more.
A little bit sometimes, but we improve very fast, and when we start to understand what's going to happen, and we start to hear, so we decided to be proactive, and we make all the measures. So all the people who work in the office in the beginning everybody working at home. So we take computers, we take everything at home, and the people work at home. We divided the teams that work in the distribution inside the warehouse. So was 2 weeks were one team and the other team in another 2 weeks were another team. So we try to avoid the contacts less possible to avoid any kind of problem that could happen. Fortunately, everything went well. Of course, it has a big impact in our company. It has everyone. Of course, we have to readapt, and the things work with not too big problems during the pandemic. So we adapt quite fast, and that's one thing that this company. We are talking a company almost with 93 years old, so almost 100 years old. But even so, we are quite young because we have a very big team that we are able to react quite very fast, and sometimes we can predict in advance what we can do. So we don't work, okay, this happens and now we have to do something. No, first we think, and probably if the thing happens, we are prepared for response to our guests. So we never let our guests without wine. Of course, it changed a lot what the people used to drink for another type of wines instead of a kind of wine they decided to drink another one. So it's understandable. But yes, and now all the measures, the 3 stores are open. Of course, we still have lots of people working at home. We try to prevent the most contact we can. So many of the meetings that we have, I start doing video conference. So try to get the new reality the best we can. But we have to. The most important is not to let our guests without wine. So that's the most important. We have to
exactly.
do everything possible to prevent that.
So one of our viewers, Gus de Vezes, is asking, what's the most popular port style that you sell online? Do you have any idea?
Yes.
Vintage.
Yes. Many people ask us for vintage. Of course, we sell some ruby, but vintage is one of the top sellings that we have. And even now, with the last years, with many awards for our ports, 100 points for some wines, and in fact has increased the sellings a lot. Was quite impressive, and that is a trend. People are able right now to buy a young port and to keep it a little bit longer, to drink a little bit later, or to drink right now, because there are some young vintage that are quite good. I think it's I think that's a good trend.
Yeah, there's also a trend that we're finding at School of Port, is that generally speaking, people buy less in terms of volume. So they buy less wine and less port. But what they do buy is better in terms of quality. So you don't have much of the young ports being sold, and people prefer much more the old tawnies, the colheitas, and the vintage style. So that's quite impressive. I wanted to ask you as well, what about the white port? Do you sell a lot of white port? Is it a trend?
That depends for the consumer. That depends. Some people are more willing to try for the white port. Unfortunately, many people still think that white port is like Madeira to cook or like Marsala. It's not like that, unfortunately. But we are trying to give experience for the person. And when I appear the port and tonic, I think it's a very good aperitif, or just a white port, just a zest of lemon, and the ice cube is perfect, or chilled with no ice. So it's a very good aperitif just to drink. So of course, always with moderation. Don't drink the whole bottle, but always with moderation. But it's a very good beverage. And I think that there are more people, mostly the youngest people, they are starting to drink some white port, some young white port. Of course, if you go for something a little bit more deep, like, as I said, Kron from '64, one of my favorites, white port, old port. It's well, it's difficult because it's a more complex, and some people will take time to understand the wine, because for the first time it's a little bit different than a tawny or than a vintage, so they have a little bit sometimes. But of course, I think for sure, I think it's not just a trend. I think it will stay, and if depend on us, we'll keep promote the white port also as a product, as a very good beverage, an alternative for other beverage, not from Portugal, not from port.
Right. So we're unfortunately running out of time. We already started the session a bit later than we were supposed to. There's another question we received. What could you tell us about Vaginas? I love it. Someone says, do you want to talk about that specific estate?
Well, Vaginas, it's a small state with lots of history, and Quinta de Vaginas is probably some of the best vintage ever made in Portugal. Some years I can precise which is I'm trying to remember, but I will tell in a moment. I'm trying to remember the vintage, but Vaginas, you can make one thing in the ports, and usually more in the vintage. The ports are sometimes quite keen. They are very austeric, and the tannins are very harsh in the beginning. And Vaginas always has a style, quite smooth, very fresh, with a very delicate fruit and fruit forward. But at the same time, you have the balance between the alcohol, between the barrel, between the fruit. And I think one of the big secrets of that product is the blend. When the way and that they cut the fermentation and they add the grape spirits, and I think that's impressive. So you can keep the wine for years, but also you can have the wine when it's young, because of course it's going to be different, but elegant, velvety. So it's a very good state, a very good wine, and they during the years they can make a very good benchmark. That is a very, very good vintage port. It's one of my favorite too, and he has a very good choice.
Nelson, as I said, we're really running out of time. Just one last super quick question for you. What was the best port you ever tasted? If you had to pick one only. I know this is a difficult one, but it's just also one? I believe just one. If you had to pick just one, and you would drink that wine for until the end of your days, what would it be? I know it's a hard question. Come on.
Probably
would it be
1957 from Newport Colheita.
There you go.
Probably.
Exquisite taste. Probably.
Well, because I'm a big fan of Colheitas. I have others. I cannot choose one for sure, but probably should be that one. If I only have to buy a vintage a port, will be a Colheita from Newport 1957, probably something like that. For
right. Sure. So there's a tip for everyone who's listening to the live today. Well, Nelson, thank you very, very much once again for joining us and for the live session. And sorry for the technical issues at the beginning, but I know that we were successful in being able to continue with the live. I think with no problems. So thank you very much once again, and thank you guys for watching at home. It was a pleasure to talk to you, Nelson. I hope that we have more opportunities without technical issues in the future. Let's hope so. And cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
And for you at home, we hope that you have enjoyed the session. Please feel free to send messages, direct messages with future topics, subjects that you'd like us to cover here at School of Port. And as always, don't forget to stay tuned at School of Port, brought to you by the Port Mad people at Symington Family Estates. Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.